Good afternoon. My name is Zachary Brown, and I'm here today to discuss the importance of stretching. Today on our agenda, we will be discussing the importance of stretching. Today, I'm going to touch on benefits of stretching, some stretching techniques, and cover some exercises we will be using during our YouTube stretching sessions. Before getting started, I would like to remind everyone that my next Importance of Stretching YouTube video will be released soon. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits of stretching. There's 4 key parts to stretching, and that are 1. Increasing your flexibility, 2. Increase your range of motion, 3. Improves your performance in physical activities, and finally, increase blood flow to your muscles. Now let's talk about increasing your flexibility. Regular stretching can help increase your flexibility. Like, stretching your legs, stretching your arms, etc., which is crucial for your overall health. Not only can improved flexibility help you to perform everyday activities such as walking, mowing your lawn, or anything like that with relative ease, but it can also help delay reduced mobility that can come along with aging. Because you don't want to be old with a bad back. Now let's talk about increasing your range of motion. Being able to move a joint through its full range of motion gives you more freedom of movement. Stretching on a regular basis can help increase your range of motion. One study tested source found that both static and dynamic stretching are effective when it comes to increasing your range of motion. Although PNF neuromuscular facilitation, PNF type stretching, where you stretch a muscle to its limits, may be more effective for immediate gains, but it won't do much for your future. Improves your performance in physical activities. Who doesn't want to improve their performance in physical activities such as sports or anything you do? Performing dynamic stretches prior to physical activities has been shown to help prepare your muscles for the activity. It may also help improve your performance in an athletic event or exercise, such as, if you're in sports such as basketball, football, or even going to the gym or just working out in general. Now, let's talk about increased blood flow to your muscles. Performing stretches on a regular basis may improve circulation. Improved circulation increases blood flow to your muscles, which can shorten your recovery time and reduce muscle soreness. Now let's talk about some stretching techniques. There are several types of stretching techniques, but most common are static, active and passive, dynamic, PNF, ballistic, and the most common forms of stretches are static and dynamic. Now, as you're done, lifting weights, go ahead and do a little bit of stretching to get your muscles warmed up again. There are 2 forms of static stretching: active static and passive static. Let's talk about static active first. Static active stretching requires the strength of the opposing muscles groups to hold the limbs in position for the stretch. For example, standing on one leg and holding the opposite leg out directly in front of you is classified as static active stretch. Active stretches are usually quite difficult to hold and maintain for more than 10 seconds and rarely need to be held any longer than 15 to 30 seconds for 1 to 2 stretches per muscle group. As with other forms of stretching, static active stretching is recommended as part of your warm-up. Active stretching increases active flexibility and strengthens agnostic muscles. The picture provided is an example of static active stretching. You can see that he's just clearly having his leg up in the air and stretching his leg out. Static passive. Static passive stretches are the most common stretches and easiest to perform. If executed with good technique, these stretches are effective in improving flexibility and range of motion. Passive stretching is also referred to as relaxed stretching and as static passive stretching. A passive stretch is one where you assume a position and hold it with some other part of your body or with the assistance of a partner. For example, bringing your leg up high and then holding it there with your hand. The split is an example of passive stretch. Slow, relaxed stretching is useful in relieving spasms in muscles that are healing after an injury. Like for example, some players deal with, Achilles injuries, broken legs, or anything that was injured during an activity or sport. Obviously, you should check with your doctor first to see if it's okay to attempt to stretch the injured muscle, because you don't want to hurt yourself even more, or even worse, make yourself less comfortable. Relaxed stretching is also very good for cooling down after a workout and helps reduce post-workout muscle fatigue and soreness. So, like I said earlier, after lifting weights, when you feel sore in your arms, your legs, your biceps, your chest, it's okay to do a little bit of stretching, to help the muscles relax a little more and get loose. The picture provides an example of passive stretching. You can see he's on the track field, have his legs in opposite directions, and stretching. Dynamic stretches. Dynamic stretches are active movements that cause your muscles to stretch, but the stretch is not held in the end position. Dynamic stretching means a stretch is performed by moving through a challenging but comfortable range of motion repeatedly, usually to 10 to 12 minutes. What I mean by challenging but comfortable range is you might feel a little bit of resistance while doing your stretch, but if you feel any type of pain, then you're probably doing something wrong. Dynamic stretches. Most fitness experts agree that although static passive stretches have many benefits, it's best to do more dynamic active stretches. Dynamic active stretches require you to use and build your own strength while moving through the stretch. They are more helpful for improving functional movements used in everyday life or even in sports. Also, because dynamic active stretches are movement oriented. Now, let's talk about dynamic stretches. Most fitness experts agree that although static passive stretches have many benefits, it's best to do more dynamic active stretches. Dynamic active stretches require you to use and build your own strength while moving through the stretch. They are more helpful for improving functional movements used in everyday life and even in sports like football, basketball, soccer, even hockey. Also, because dynamic active stretches are movement oriented, these stretches can help generate heat, which can make the muscles more flexible. Evidence suggests that because dynamic active stretches require muscle activation and contraction, the muscles being stretched are triggered to relax even more than when they might be during passive stretches, thereby reducing the risk of injury while increasing your functional benefits. It is gaining favor among athletes, coaches, trainers, and physical therapists because of its apparent benefits in improving functional range of motion and mobility in sports and activities for daily living. Now let's talk about dynamic stretches. This does not mean you should avoid or minimize static passive stretching. Just be aware that there appears to be quite few more advantages. This does not mean you should avoid or minimize static passive stretching. Just be aware that there appears to be quite a few advantages and benefits to dynamic active stretching, and that you should include these types of stretches as often as you can. In the picture provides an example of dynamic stretching. You can see her stretching her legs out, kicking them back and forth, side to side, and even moving her arms. Now let's talk about some PNF stretches. According to the International PNF Association, PNF stretching was developed by Dr. Harman Kabat in the 1940s as a means to treat neuromuscular conditions including polio. It involves the contraction and stretching of muscles and usually performed with a partner and involved both passive movements and active muscle actions. Many athletes rely on PNF when they're trying to achieve other goals. When it comes to flexibility and range of motion, almost all athletes use these to better their bodies, such as LeBron. The picture provides an example of PNF stretching. This exercise can be done with a friend or an assistant. Let's talk about ballistic stretching. Ballistic stretching is a form of stretching where you bounce or repeatedly push your body past its natural range of motion by using momentum, force, or gravity. It's important to note that ballistic stretching and active stretching are not the same. They are two different things. These two forms of stretching often get confused because neither version involves holding stretches for an extended period of time. Active stretching is different from ballistic stretching because bouncing and jerking motions that push your joints past their natural range of motion aren't performed, rather simply taking your body to its limits in a controlled or continuous fashion. Basically meaning pushing your body past its limits. The picture provides an example of ballistic stretching. Now we go over a couple of stretching sessions that will be used during my YouTube sessions, session 1 and session 2. Let's talk about stretching session 1. First, we will start out with static stretches to include shoulder stretch, tricep stretch, hamstring stretch, and groin stretch. Once completed, we will move on to session 2 and our second set of stretches. Our second session will include dynamic and ballistic stretches to include lunges, butt kicks, jumping jacks, and standing knee hugs. Mastering these stretches will allow your body to get the blood flowing and ready for whatever event you have to participate in. In summary today, I've touched on some benefits of stretching to include increased flexibility, range of motion, and increased blood flow. Next, I went over the types of stretches to include passive and active static, dynamic, pinup, and ballistic, and how each benefits the user. I finished my presentation with a couple of examples of stretching exercises for my YouTube session. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I have passed on some insight about the importance of stretching. Thank you.